Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My family's here today. Iowa Democrats, if we do our job, 400 days from today, we can send Donald Trump back to Mar-a-Lago and end the long national nightmare that we are facing and save our democracy. I'm Michael Bennet. It is great to be here. Thank you. I am not a career politician. I was in business saving jobs and then was the superintendent of the Denver Public Schools, a large urban school district where most of the kids live in poverty but have exactly the same dreams as my kids. I've been in the Senate for 10 years, having won 2 very tough elections in a purple state. And 10 years ago, when I got back to Washington, I thought that what I would find would be the bedrock of our democracy. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And instead, what I found was Steve King and Mitch McConnell and a whole cast of characters who are trying to make Barack Obama's life an absolute misery, destroying our government and this exercise in self-government. In the 10 years that I've been there, nothing has changed about the Republicans except now we have Donald Trump. Someone who says climate change is a hoax, but that Iowa's windmills are causing cancer. Somebody who says that he loves Kim Jong-un, but hates our allies like Angela Merkel. Someone who told us that Mexico would pay for the wall, but guess what? You are. Someone who turns out can't buy Greenland, but has sold the White House to polluters and to crony capitalists. He did say he'd run the government just like one of his businesses, and that's the only promise he's kept. Bankrupt. None of that has anything to do with improving the lives of real Americans. And that's something I know a lot about. If I had to sum up the 10 years of town halls that I've had in Iowa, and now the town halls I've had in Iowa, it's that people come and they say, Michael, we are working so hard, but we can't afford some combination of housing, health care, early childhood education, or higher education. For the families that don't come to my town halls because they're working 2 and 3 jobs, but are people I know well because their kids went to my old school district, if they were at my town halls, they'd say, Michael, we are killing ourselves, but we cannot get our kids out of poverty. And we got to fix this. In Iowa, you're hearing a lot of plans from a lot of people, but what I hear people ask me in my town halls here is, how are you going to get it done with those guys back in Washington? How are you going to get it done? And I've got an answer for that. We need an agenda that's going to unite Democrats and the 9 million people that voted twice for Barack Obama and once for Donald Trump. We need an agenda that's going to build a new American dream for this country that all of our fellow citizens need. We need to take that agenda to the country, to tough states like yours and to mine, and to win tough elections so that we win the White House, send McConnell packing, and hold on to the House majority. And by winning, we can finally fix a broken Washington, which is what we all want to do. That's an agenda I've been fighting for the last 10 years. I didn't have to come up with it to run for president. And it's an agenda that unites the American people. It's an agenda that has at its economic core a tax cut that's a real tax cut for the middle class, and will cut childhood poverty in America by 40%. Universal health care. Universal health care through a public option that we can enact in 3 years, not in 30 years, give everybody health care in this country and cut costs. Instead of free college, How about free kindergarten, pre-kindergarten for every kid in America who needs it, which is every kid in America? And putting the 70% of kids who never go to college in the position of earning a living wage, not the minimum wage, when they graduate from high school. A climate change plan that's not just urgent, but can create policy that can last a generation and close over the broken politics in Washington. That's how we can build a broad coalition across this country. And it's good policy, and it's good politics, Iowa. And I want to tell you, we risk losing if we run on the wrong ideas. Take health care, where for families in this country, the stakes couldn't be higher. Think about first the hypocrisy of the Republicans who'd kill Obamacare. Donald Trump's health care is paid for by all of us. Mitch McConnell's health care is paid for by all of us. So is Rand Paul's. And yet Donald Trump is the first president to run for president and be president who's literally taken health care away from millions of Americans. That's the choice we offer. Republicans taking it away and Democrats fighting for universal health care. And it's okay, there's a big difference in this race. I think President Obama was right to promise that if you like your health care, you can keep it. We can't become the party of taking it away from 180 million Americans. We won the House back in 2018 with Democrats running on a public option, not Medicare for all. Democrats like Abby Finkenauer and Cindy Axne right here in Iowa, and we should follow their lead. That's how we'll build a majority. You know that here in Iowa. And to do that, we need to nominate somebody who's run tough races, as I have in Colorado, who says the same thing in the primary that they say in the general election. Listen, when I decided to run for president, my daughter Caroline, who's standing behind me, said, "Dad, if you run and you tell the truth and you lose, no one can fault you for it." And I said to her, "Caroline, that's good because there's no other reason for me to run. And by the way, I don't think there's any other way for me to win," which is why I was so pleased the other day when I saw in the Des Moines Register the headline on their editorial that said, "Michael Bennet pounds truth into this campaign." And that is what we need, Iowa. You are all here today to save our democracy, just like the people that came before us. You know, the founders of this country did two incredible things in their lifetimes. One was they won an armed insurrection against a colonial power. That's called the Revolution. The other was they submitted the Constitution for ratification by the people who would live under it. That had never happened before. They did something terrible, which is they perpetuated human slavery. And it took other Americans to do their duty. One in particular, who is named Frederick Douglass, who was born a slave in this country. He ran away, he fled, he got to Massachusetts, where he met the abolitionists there, and the abolitionists were arguing at that time that the Constitution was a pro-slavery document. And Frederick Douglass said, who was totally self-educated, "You have it exactly backwards. The Constitution is an anti-slavery document, but we are not living up to the words of that Constitution." It is the same thing that Martin Luther King said in Memphis when he was there for the garbage workers who were striking, when he said, "I am here to make sure that America keeps the promise you wrote down on the page." And Iowa, I think our job is exactly the same as that. And I think Frederick Douglass and Martin Luther King are founders just like the people that wrote the Constitution of the United States. And I believe that the men and women, and especially women, who fought for women to have the right to vote, who fought for my daughters who had the right to vote. I think the children who marched in the streets in America yesterday to call our attention to the climate crisis that we face, I think they are founders too. And when you think about what your responsibility is in this election, you need to think of yourself as a founder. That is the job of a citizen in a democratic republic. We were careless with our democracy and we elected Donald Trump. We cannot elect Donald Trump. And Iowa, if you do what you're supposed to do, we will not elect Donald Trump again. Iowa Democrats, you set the course for the country by voting first. Don't just send a message. Caucus for a candidate who knows how to build a new American dream. That's how we're going to beat Donald Trump. Thank you, Iowa, for your kindness, for your generosity, for being here today. Thank you.